Welcome back. It's episode 13, and Pat's here today.
I'm sorry, I was very unwell. I was very, very unwell. I still don't feel wonderful, but I'm back.
You're doing it.
I'm doing it.
Take him off the team.
Okay, so unfortunately we didn't get to do the live or the Q&A last week because I wasn't here. So Jazz filled in, was able to get a video out about an update, actually a really fantastic video of an update of where she's at with the dogs.
Thanks.
And we've stockpiled a bunch of questions that we're going to go through today. So today we'll probably go for an hour or so, or I don't know, you know how long it is, you can see. You're in the future of it's finished and we're in the present of building it. And unfortunately, when we copied all the questions across, it didn't bring across all the names of the people. So we don't have the names of the people, but we're going to read the questions. And hopefully I should be able to put them onto the screen while Jazz is reading the first one. Let's do it.
That's a good idea. I did not think about that last time. All right, so first question. Loving this content and seeing the progression. My question for the Q&A is a strange one. Noted. I do ANKC style tracking, man trailing, as well as nose work. My cue for nose work is search, tracking is track, and I haven't done one for man trailing, but we'll use a different one for that, just to permit air scenting more. The question, do you intend to use different cues for an area search as opposed to a track? I was thinking communicating to the dog to find an article or human scent as opposed to a particular indicator scent, or following the human scent to the hide could be difficult if that's required. For example, in scent work, they want nose on the source, so my down indication when tracking took some work to fix. Agency dogs just need to find the thing, so I guess it's a non-issue. It's a bit of an airy, fluffy question, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on how you deal with those challenges or any you have come across. So the main question, to summarize that, is do I intend to use a different cue between area search, tracking, and man trailing? No, not really. So the way we do this is, which this all started with Pat knowing a bit more about this than me, we start with tracking, so that's nose to the ground, ground disturbance, and smelling any scents on the ground. But then once that's fully understood, there's absolutely no question about their understanding there. They're really consistent and everything with that. Then we start to bring in, we could say maybe like 6 or 7 months. We might just show them a brief little picture as a game. You give them food sort of when they find you, where Pat will run away just around the corner, around a few basic things, and then they run and chase after him. So it's just showing the picture, and it's maybe food, then a little bit of play if they're at that stage. Then we kind of just put that on the back burner. Hey, and when would you say we bring it back out again? It kind of just depends, right?
When they're ready, it depends. So the way I was taught tracking, and there's lots of different ways to do this, and I'm by no means a tracking expert. And in the time that we've been doing this together, Jazz is now way better at teaching tracking to a dog than I am, because she's done way more of it in recent times. I'm the one that lays the tracks and gets found. She's the one that's actually handling the dogs. So that for me, tracking has 4 components. So there's the actual indication on the article, and I use the command, let's say we're going to call it track. I say track, and they can find the article. And then in order to find the article, they're going to end up tracking ground disturbance in order to do that. So they're going to find, your footprints on the ground, the broken grass, all the things that are actually on the ground that develop a scent, whether you're leaving it there or you're causing it to happen. That also then has the command track. Then when we start doing like an area search type thing, or a building search where we want them to be up, like head up, and actually using their nose to air scent molecules and find where someone's gone, because they might be in an area where, it's probably hard surface at that point, and you're going to have like wind swirls and stuff like that within an urban area. So we want the dog to be able to like lift and look around for it. We give that the same command to track. And then the final thing is like a scent discrimination games, which we do when they're a little bit older, which is, yes, okay, I know that you've tracked to this group of people, but tell me which one of these people that you tracked. Because that's actually, even though the dog knows that full well, you have to give some value to them actually indicating to you who the specific person that they've been tracking is. And we'll do that via these like scent discrimination games, which we will do with them later on in their life. So all 4 of those things have the same command. And really all we're ever asking these dogs to do is find someone. So when you then give that one track command, you're telling the dog, hey, you're a dog. You're the one that actually... You
got the skills. You got the nose.
You actually have the capability to do this. One, it's real, and I don't know where the person is, or, this isn't training. This is real. We just want to say to them, like, hey, I need you to find this person. You've got 4 skills to do it. Use whichever one you need to do it. Because what we don't want is a dog that like can air scent someone,
but can't ground track.
Yeah,
or
but knows there's someone there via the air scent, because the dog will know that, but is committed to the ground disturbancy. And so, like in the real, like in
because that's the liability, like hide around a corner, but they did a loop to get.
Yeah, that's right. So like in IGP tracking, you know, like you have a turn and you want the dog to take the turn like that. But in the real world, people can double back on themselves. So if the dog if somebody comes around and comes and lays an ambush for you as you're going along the track, you want the dog to be like, hey, I know that the track goes this way, but I also know that the dude is over here. So they'll cut across and go straight to them. So we don't necessarily want any more value into one over the other. The value is finding the person, but the order that we teach them in is ground disturbancy first, because it's the
hierarchy. I think I can't remember if you told me, but like they have more trouble going from air to ground than ground to air.
Yeah, well, we think. And so it's the same as, and again, these are sort of just the things that I was taught. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily true.
But like how we do it is turned out.
I was taught by Bart, so I'm going to take his word for it, and we've been successful for it in the past. But, you know, someone else might have different experience in doing it. But what I want, it's always easier to bring a dog up than it is to bring a dog down. So that's why even in the bite work, we tend to start them in the legs, even if they're going to be an upper body dog, because at some point they're going to need to bite legs or be at least able to. And it's much easier to drift a dog up the body than it is to bring them down the body. And it's the same with the tracking. It's much easier to get them going on the ground disturbancy and nose to the ground, and then permitting head up and what other people like. You know, a lot of people might even think of they think of it as perving, like the dog just looking around, but we have to allow them to do that, because they have to be able to be like, they're not necessarily looking, and you can tell the difference in that. You can tell whether they're just looking around versus they've lifted.
Whether it's lack of motivation, lack of understanding, distraction, you can tell for sure.
So there's only ever one command from my point of view for tracking, and those 4 different skills, they're dog skills. You use whichever one is going to get the job done. That's none of my business. And I think, you know, what is important about teaching tracking to a dog is learning the dog. And the dog will always, you can tell, when you're teaching a dog and you know full well exactly where the track is, the dog's body language will change when it's off the track. And you'll learn to read the dog in terms of, are you off the track and searching for it? Or are you just lying to me and just cruising around? Are you on a new track? Like, are you just like doing your own thing? And so in those early phases where you're actually teaching the dog to do this and you know exactly where the track is because you can see your own footprints in the ground, that's when you want to pay a ton of attention to the dog's body language and what's going on. Usually their tail is one of the strongest tells, but there isn't a set of principles of like, oh, because the tail did this, this is happening.
That's just per dog. It kind of, I have almost a set of principles per dog, but then even then that changes as they progress and things. So it's like, it's something you've always got to watch.
Yeah. And usually like one of the sort of, not rules, but a blanket principle you might be able to follow is that a dog that is doing a good job on a concentrated track, its tail is dead still, its nose is shut, and its tail might even be tucked.
Nose open, mouth shut?
Nose open, well, nose working,
Do you know tracking?
mouth shut, tail kind of still and flat or even tucked. So the dog should actually look a little bit like flat and depressed, because that's like concentration from a dog. And when you see dogs that are like mouth open, tail wagging, they're not tracking.
And sometimes like you can see them getting a bit excited, so that like their tail might come up. And it's like they're staying to the track, but they're getting excited because they can smell the scent getting stronger and they're getting closer to the person. So it's like that sometimes changes, but I have to go, oh, okay, are they getting a bit more intense, or are they starting to like just flex out and do whatever now? So, you know, I've got to watch that for every dog as well.
Yeah. So, tracking's a funny one. Like neither of us, I would say, are like world level trackers, you know what I mean?
Not.
Jazz has developed a really excellent skill set in training dogs to do it, but you know, be careful taking too much of our advice on tracking, because we're not tracking experts. We're people that know how to train tracking.
And the clients that I've helped to do this are looking to do something fun with their dog, or some are doing the when natural disasters, SES and stuff like that. You know,
search and rescue type ones.
Yeah, sort of search and rescue and those sort of things. Or they live out in the middle of Australia and they can't get police dogs out there, you know, efficiently, but there's a lost kid, or, you know, someone with dementia or something and they need a dog to find them, they'll get members of the public.
Yeah.
So I've helped people like that to teach their dogs to track, but it's like it's for practical use, not for points, not for the maximum precision on a track and things like that.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we're down talking how capable Jazz is of doing it, but all the dogs that she's produced have found people for realsies. We just found out yesterday that one of the dogs that went to,
don't give all the detail.
Had a fantastic find. Very significant find. So it always seems to work out.
That was the newer ones out of Roger and Richard.
Yeah.
But Fred and Frank, they're on the job. They've got lots of finds and things. I can't find the question. I know it's in here because I saw it somewhere when I transferred them over. Someone asked if I lay my own tracks. So you spoke about you lay the tracks for man trailing later. You lay the tracks later for the tracking as well. But to answer that person's question, although I can't find it, I lay all my own tracks from the start until I decide that they're ready with the level of understanding, the level of motivation and dedication sort of to the track. So then when I bring in someone else like Pat at the end of the track, whether they're going to learn to find him at the end, but then sometimes there's no find at the end and we cut them short and reward them like that. But they have to be able to then be in a state where they can control their arousal. So when they realize, oh, this is a track that has the person at the end maybe, and like there's the food and the play and this, like, and if they start to get excited, they have to be able to still do the track. So we don't bring that in. Like if I bring out a nice piece of chicken for them as opposed to kibble and they can't control their arousal level, then we might not start to do that sort of thing with tracking, for example, because if they can't control their arousal levels and still do the task at hand, then it's a problem. So until I can see that they're really committed to the track, they understand sort of the rules of tracking. You can't just check out and do your own thing. We don't introduce someone else to walk them, but I walk them myself. In terms of what you should do, I don't know because I don't know the reason for your tracking, if it's for a sport and things like that. And sorry, I don't know your name. I also can't read the exact question, but it's like, it's on there somewhere and it's tied in. But it's yes, I do walk my own tracks, but you got to choose what's going to work for you. If you want more repetitions of tracking, which is something you said, it just depends if that's going to work for you and your dog and how it's going to work if you have a club and things like that. So, but that's the answer. I do walk my own tracks until a certain point. All right. After that, I go back to sometimes walking my track, sometimes you do it, and they've got a track.
It's really more than anything, it's about controlling arousal. Like they know if it's your scent, at best it's going to be a ball at some point or a toy or something. It's going to be food. But if it's my scent or someone else's scent, they're like, hey, I might find this dude and get to bite him.
And they have to understand to, keep on the task with you. But with me, hey, just because you think that it might be a lesser reward doesn't mean you cannot track, know, so.
All right, next one. How do I get to learn all these to raise the puppy? I mean, I understand that being part of a sports club helps you go there 3 times a week at best, and if you have the time. The rest of the days and whole week, you're on your own. I wish you recorded all these moments and training to make a working puppy course. Is there anything you can recommend? I'm thinking about Andy Kruger's Patreon. So, I mean, how you learn to do this stuff is from doing it. You're going to make mistakes. There's no doubt about that. And you just got to dive in and learn from those mistakes. Don't get too wrapped up around it. The whole point of what we're doing with these puppies is Jazz is basically filming everything.
I'm trying.
And what we're trying to, the thing that we will have to sell from this, what we're doing here is, it's really, I think we're still looking to call it like the space between the sessions. So there's heaps of really good information, and I don't know about Andy Kruger's Patreon, so it might be fantastic.
And I'll still add tutorials on my own thing separate.
That's right. So along the way, you're on my channel now. At the end, there'll be cards that will take you to Jazz's channel. You go to her channel, and she's putting out separate videos showing more like how she's actually doing training parts, and there's more like this, do that type things.
And that'll be tutorials later as well, like sort of just step by step. This is how I did it. You can follow it if you want.
Yeah.
But what we're doing here.
Yeah, what we're putting together from all of this, and it'll be out, I think we'll probably wait until they're at least sort of 6-7 months old, because then they're, no longer puppies in my eyes. They're sort of adolescent dogs, maybe even up to 10 months, we'll see. a tutorial series on how to raise a high drive dog and how to like keep that dog livable as your pet and also do the cool thing, whatever that is that you want to do with it. So it's going to be called like the space between the sessions, because I think that's where most people kind of fall over. There's heaps of really good information about what to do actually in the sessions, and there's plenty of bouncing ball guides on like teach this, then this, then this. What there isn't a lot of information on, and what there definitely is a gap in the market for, because people are constantly asking us that we're only doing this because people have asked to do it, right?
It makes the job like exponentially more difficult.
Yeah.
Is that even the right word? Exponentially?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so it's the space between the sessions, like how to raise them, how to live with them, and how to turn them into a livable pet, a dog that stays within your life and is, not in its kennel and comes out to work. Like is just a dog that actually has livability, but still has all the capability of doing whatever it is you want. And it's not going to be, these dogs are, potentially going to be police dogs or sport dogs or whatever, but it's not going to be specific to any one of those. So if you've got a border collie you're going to do agility with, like it's the same things. It's just the process by which you live with the dog, not the specifics of how you teach any of that.
Sweet. Next one. Thanks so much for this class. Thanks. Yeah, okay. Thanks so much for this class. Very instructive. Oh, it's the one on my channel.
Okay.
The shaping video, that makes sense. That is in the wrong place. Anyway, what if... so for context, I put out a shaping video. There's the full sessions. So it's in reference to that, hence it's instructive. He said, they said, what if in the first session you give the jackpot when he just looked at the box or looked to the box, then raise the criteria in the next session, also with a jackpot when he reaches reaches the reel?
The real, yeah, I don't know.
Reaches the box, let's say, right? I did that with one of my dogs and also worked, regards from Brazil. P.S. When I start to introduce jackpots to puppies, I throw all the food on the ground, just like a casino jackpot, which seems to us at least a much bigger prize than actually is. Just an idea. Okay, so brief summary, the way I was training to go to the marker board, it's not the actual box that Pat often talks about, it's the marker board. I was just shaping the pups to go to that, put out the YouTube video showing the sessions. All I did from the start was unclip the dog or let go of the dog, and when they walked over started clicking and things like that. He's saying for sure, he's saying that you could just jackpot that very first time and that be the end of the first session. Fantastic, cool, 100% could. I'm pretty sure on the other dogs, what I've actually done is gone, here's a bowl of food, and I just walk the dog outside and they find it, and then that's the first session. I just didn't do it this time, probably because I forgot. I can't even remember. But yeah, that for sure could work. And the next rep, next session, they're likely to go back there quicker again. But you're still going to come across then in the sessions to follow that gap where they get the reward and then they're like, what do we do now? Like they don't understand shaping yet, because that's the very first shaping session that they've ever done. So they're like, am I free? You haven't said that I'm free. Am I finished? Do I have to be relaxed? And they sort of wander around looking like, I don't know. So they're still going to go through that. I was just happy to do that for the first couple of sessions. And in that third session, they really started to go, hey, I'm going to make the choice to go to that marker board because I know for some crazy reason you're obsessed with it and I get food there. So, but yeah, that for sure could work.
Jackpotting's never cut and dry. Like with some dogs, you're better off not jackpotting and doing more reps.
Yes. So that's one of the things I said. I don't often, or I don't all the time, finish on a jackpot.
Yeah.
Like I'll jackpot a rep to go, hey man, great work, and hope maybe there's another, because it's for the next rep, right?
Yeah.
It's to affect the next rep. But then I'll make the next rep slightly higher criteria. So that motivation to do it
pushes in,
goes into the next criteria where it's a little bit difficult. And I might end up on finishing on like a bad rep where they were confused or maybe like not sure and trying to figure it out. But like that's where I am sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and like depending on the dog. So jackpotting is a weird one in that like some dogs, exactly as you've said here, whoever asked the question, scatter feeding, it can draw it out and the dog goes like, oh, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, and that can help. And then other dogs are like, oh, I want a big volume of it, and giving them to them all in one go feels like a jackpot. So you got to kind of know the dog and do what's appropriate for it.
Like with Parker, you scatter it, he'll walk away and start the task again eventually halfway through because he'll just be like, oh, I want to do it again. So it's like you got to give him more say in your hand, or let him steal it, or if you put it on the floor, a dump of like a pile of
Yeah.
it. But like if it's scattered, he's more likely to go, no, I want to do more work. That's more fun than finding the food.
Yeah. So figure out what's appropriate to the dog. All right, next one. Hi, Pat and Jazz. I have a 10-week-old Malinois puppy that I've had for 2 weeks, similar to your pups in the beginning. He's got big feelings about things, especially strangers. He will run out to the end of the leash and bark. I've been taking him out on short walks every day, and we have made a lot of progress. Now, instead of barking at every single person, he only barks at people who try and engage with him. Should I just stay the course and hope he continues to improve, or should I try something like flooding? Could you break down the process of flooding in more detail? Thank you. So, again, hard to give
flooding.
specific
Here you go.
advice. Yeah. So you've really got to understand why your dog's kind of barking like that. Is he trying to prompt something out of the people?
Is it a habit?
Or is is it just a habit that he's got into, or is he actually concerned about them? Like, all those different things are going to be relevant to it.
Or is he trying to get a response from you? Because he's like, you're boring. I want to like do something with you. And when I do this, you interact with me.
Yeah.
That's always a tricky one.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's kind of figuring out why that's happening. And then the dealing with it is that you just want to change the way they feel about people. So whatever technique you decide to go down, the idea is that you want to bring them to the point where they're like, oh, I don't really care. Like, that's the idea, is that you want them just in people that go past and are, in their lives. You want the puppy just to be like, oh, I don't even care about this. This isn't something that I'm worried about.
And for the ones we raise, it's important that they can accept being touched by other people, but not solicit that.
Yeah.
Because like if they're going to get handled or touched by someone else in their team, like on the unit, if they're helping the police take someone down, and then another person comes in and like, yeah, good dog, yep, okay, and I'm going to help now, cuff that person or something. It's like they got to be okay with that in all states of arousal.
And people do dumb shit to dogs on the street. Like, people, like, I was walking past here the other day with my own dog, and someone just like, with my Malinois, like, he's totally safe. It doesn't make any difference. But like, someone at the bus stop just drags their hand completely down him as we walk past, like reaches out and drags their hand completely down. Now, my dog's like, yuck. Like, he has no interest in people. He's like, don't touch me with your dirty hands. That's gross. But doesn't get big feelings about it. But like, people do random shit. Yeah. So you want to like neutralize them. But on the topic of where you've asked, like, what does the flooding look like, is that you want them to realize, like, these people that are in my presence have no value to me, and let him kind of bark it out. But if he's got, like, that may be totally inappropriate for your specific dog. So that's why when we spoke about flooding, we talked about how it's not something that I really ever give as a blanket recommendation, because there's absolutely times that you shouldn't do it. And the thing with flooding is, like, the rules are it either works or it fucking makes it way worse.
And the only time you know that it doesn't work and it gets worse is
when it gets worse. Yeah. So I'm very hesitant to give that advice to anyone. Like, it's something that we do a lot, because when it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. And you can stop what would have been a big problem, and having a long fix, you can just nip it in the bud and it's over, it's quick. But it's definitely not something that I, as a Q&A, could talk through the elements of, because it's quite a more significant topic. But the gist of it is, the dog just has to go eventually realize, like, oh, there's nothing happening here. This doesn't have any effect. My barking is useless at these people, but also these people are not interested in interacting with me. They're not, no matter what the dog's feelings are about it, whether they are worried or they are trying to solicit attention, whatever it is, you want them to understand, like, hey, that's not going to work. That you're not going to get what you think you're going to get from that. That's not how that's going to go. And then they go like, oh, there's no point, and they move on.
And this is one of the reasons why, like, I feel ridiculous all the time, and probably like people think I'm ridiculous. I'll have a toy, I'll have food, I'll have like a clicker. There's probably a verbal marker loaded. I'll have an article in my pocket. Anytime I go places, I often have like multiple ways to deal with any unforeseeable situation.
Yeah.
So it's like, if something comes up, I can deal with it. And if it's not going to be food that works for it to manage or get through that situation, I have the toy, or I have an article, or I have like that the dog can indicate on and just go in the zone of that, But it's like, I have all the things that I would need to manage an emergency or a potential accidental flooding if it was just to happen. But it's like you got to be prepared.
Yeah.
Eventually get to the point where I don't have to have all that. I could be walking around with none of it, but I trust the dogs have handled all the situations and have been developed the right way.
Yeah.
But it's preparing for things. That's one of the big things, I think, with training them.
For sure.
So the next one is, what is your criteria /timeline /opinion on when to teach the out with your working dog puppy in order to keep training fluid and not squash any drive. Thanks, guys. So I assume by when you say keep training fluid, that's so you can use toys as a reward. So I don't necessarily use toys as a reward until I have the out. So that's not a problem. Once I have the out, then we start using toys as rewards and things like that. But I don't introduce that or have that expectation to use toys as rewards until their out is smooth. So for that, it depends so much on every dog. Like these are the sixth and seventh dog that I've raised. We've raised, but like I introduce it at home. And there's no set time. Thinking about it, I think Fred and Frank might have learnt earlier than Roger and Richard. I can't even remember.
Dunno.
But it's like it starts with play and cooperative play, in a supportive game like fetch. So it's like we're not fighting over possession, so then there's no conflict there with that. It's like, hey man, the quicker you out, like the quicker you can go back to playing the game. For some of them, I've sort of created at first with some classical conditioning. So it's like click food, yep, they let go and that sort of thing. Pair that with the word. So then like they first do it a couple of times by accident, but you give them back the toy.
Yeah.
That's been the case with some. Others, it's sort of break sticking younger with like my finger in their mouth going back. And as soon as they realize the value in like, oh, when you say this and like I come back and you throw it again, like that's great. Yeah, I want it out every time because I love that game.
Yeah.
Can't remember which dog it was, but they love to play fetch. So it was like that was the best way I could teach the out with them because they wanted the next rep. It changes for every dog.
Yeah, I think it's one of those shitty answers. But like a lot of people have like
don't have the out without the in though.
Yes,
exactly.
Like, that's it.
That's an underlying.
Sometimes people have like within a program they say like, at this gate we're going to teach the out. I think unfortunately the shitty answer is like when our ancestors tell us to. You know what I mean? When you just feel like it. But it's always got to be that the in is there. But along the way, like right from 8 weeks old, you're starting to trade them for stuff and in a really amicable way. So like, hey, exactly doing fetch. Like the dog comes back and you're just kind of waiting until they, either by accident drop the ball or you're just kind of holding it until they like get distracted by something because they're puppies and and so right from the start, you're showing them there's value in giving stuff back to me. And for the most part, giving stuff back to me just restarts the best part of this. But for me personally, I wouldn't really teach an out that I'm going to have on command until I have a level of commitment that I like in the game. And that's not going to happen until after the teething. So like it's going to be sometime between finishing teething and finishing real bite work. And then I personally just sort of start using that out a little bit more and more. And you want to be pushing the boundary of success,
Like you start in, say, fetch where it's cooperative, then like, cool, now it might be the ball on the string. The idea is fetch, but like we can, when you come back, a little bit of tug. So there's a bit of possession, but like, hey, now I stop tugging, we're going to go back into the fetch. Like you want it out now and we'll go back to that. So it's like slowly bringing in the whole thing where we can play a full game of tug and be in the middle of like trying to steal it. And if I say out, you out, and there's no conflict there,
Yeah. And so I think of it in terms of you want to be building your out, right from the jump really, but you want to stay within that sort of 80% success mark all the way along. So like that's that flow state, and so if I were to start trying to teach the out in bite work right from the jump, I'm not going to be 80% successful. So I'm not going to bring that. I'm not going to do that. And I don't want to be using a ton of pressure to teach the out either. I want it to be very, I want the dog to really understand that this is in your interest to do this in a
cooperative.
In an appetitive way. So you're going to just start implementing that out from fetch where the dog's happy to do it, to gameplay, to more rambunctious type play, like bringing the dog into a much higher level of arousal and then eventually using it in the bite work. But as for an age, I wouldn't say that there is a specific age.
Yeah, it's such a hard answer for a lot of these because it just depends on where they're at with the training. But then also thinking about it, even if it's the right time for them and it's like, cool, we can start now. Anytime from now would be good to really start working on it more. It depends on where they're at with some of the other training and also where I'm at. Like if I have a really busy couple of weeks where I know I can't like commit the exact style of training that is going to help them with that, then I don't do it then, So it depends a lot on like my own schedule as well as once the dogs are ready.
Yeah. All right, you're up.
Me. Hey, I know Pat has said he's on a 2-hour rotating schedule between activities / training / socializing versus crate time for the puppies. How do you manage crate time, Jazz? What sort of routine or schedule do you have for working puppies / adolescents?
I think you've taken me a little bit too literally as well.
I was just going to say, I don't think you're on a...
Yeah, like with very young, like 8-week-old puppies, they basically live on a 2-hour schedule where they, like throughout the day, they're going to sleep for an hour and a half, and then they've got like maybe 20 minutes, half an hour of power in them, and then they're back to sleep again. That's like for 8 to 10-week-old sort of puppies.
And then pretty quickly that 2 hour will turn to like, they'll do a bit of longer work and stuff, maybe a short 20-minute nap between the dogs because I've got 2, and then it's like they'll sleep for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Come out, have a toilet break, go back in. They might sleep for another hour or 2, but it's like...
my guess is your answer to that is like, it depends.
Yeah, so it changes. Like, very much like Pat said, like real little puppies, cool. They come out, real short work, go in, and then rinse and repeat. But how old are they now? What are they, 5 months old?
Yeah, so if this is 13, they're nearly 20 weeks or something like that. They'd be 21 weeks. Yeah,
yeah, about 5 months old.
Yeah.
Trying to count weeks in my head. It's like, how old's your kid?
32
months. Cool, man. All right. So their schedule at the moment is kind of like typically, well, this past week not counted. I tried to do almost nothing with them this week. That was just a week I needed for myself to settle my brain. But I still had to take them out each morning because that's kind of what they're used to, and I'm not trying to mess them up too much. But typically, at the moment, I'll take them out early in the morning, anywhere 5, 6, 7 sort of start time. We'll go out. I'll set a track and then set up the camera, which takes longer than they actually do the track. That is the most infuriating part.
Yeah.
They do a track in a minute. Took me 10 minutes to plan everything. All right. So then they do the track. Now, because that only took like a minute to walk the track, I then will... I'll give them food at the end of the track because that's what we're working with. Later, it'll be play. But then I'll give them, like once I say, hey, we're finished with the tracking component, we might then play a game, or we might have free liberty sort of time where they can run around, be a dog, whether that's on leash or off leash, depends on the area that I'm in and who's around and things like that. Because obviously other dogs and people are walking around. And then they'll go back in the car. So I don't just get them out for the 1 minute kind of track that they're doing at the moment and then straight back in. I'll give them a little bit more because I don't want them to think getting to the end of the track is like punishing and then they just go back in. But I also don't want to directly link it to a full-on play session. So we'll have a little bit of a like, let's just walk, toilet, and then we'll play a bit after. But then because I have 2, he goes back in, I get the next one out, we do the same thing. Roughly their sessions are about the same at the moment, and then I put that one away. I get the first one back out. Now, in that time, he's likely had a little bit of a nap or at least rested. So then when he comes out, we might do some shaping, or we might do some play or something else in a bit of a block there. Again, maybe a little bit of free liberty, finishing, coming back to the car, and then I get the next one out. So by the time I get all that done, like that's 3 hours or 4 hours by the time I get out, come home. They'll sleep for 4 hours after that. Even though they've been sleeping between each of those sessions in the van, they'll still come home. They'll sleep probably until about lunchtime, get them out and toilet. Depending how they get out of the kennels and go to the bathroom and stuff, they might show me that they need something then and there. And they've done that a couple of times where it's like, cool, all right, we're going out right now. We'll go play some more. We'll do some shaping, whatever it may be. But sometimes they just want to come out and toilet and they'll go sleep for another couple of hours. But then before I go to the gym or wherever I go in the evenings, I typically get them out to do something to sort of satisfy them to then settle for the evening. So there's kind of 2 main chunks to the day at the very start and late afternoon, but sometimes there's something in the middle. But they're sleeping between that, whether that's in their kennel, whether that's in their yard pen, or whether that's free in the yard because they get time in all 3 of those. But yeah, it just changes day to day depending on what we're working on. And
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Thanks for sharing your progress. and progressions with Peter and Parker. The variety of things you do with the pups gives an enthusiastic pet owner so many new ideas to try. Question on a regular basis, do you still place the pups on their backs between your legs for chill out time? Thanks.
So I don't often do it for like specific chill out time. If they offer that and they want that, Parker I think has a couple of times, then I will. But otherwise it's like that's not just how we chill. But in terms of trimming their nails, yep, I'm still doing that. Anytime I want to trim their nails, anytime I needed to look at their teeth the other day because they were dropping teeth like, oh man, it was crazy. I found 5 teeth in like 4 days, and 4 of them were at least Parker. And I was like, do you have any teeth left? So to check these sort of things, sometimes, yeah, I just need to flip them up and go like, hey man, let me look at your teeth. So we're still doing it for all of that, any of the vet style prep and handling checks and stuff.
So you'd say that you were doing it much more to teach it, and now you're just using it because they know it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of just whenever I need it. If you find your dog's struggling with it, like if any of them were struggling with it, I'd probably start to introduce it a little bit more and go like, okay, let's go back into the sort of teaching part just to remind you in case, whatever reason you forgot. But really, I never have to go back to that. They get enough of it, like. And when I say enough, it's not much, By the time they're adults, I don't have to trim their nails very much.
Yeah.
It's more so as puppies because, my God, they grow like crazy. But once they're kind of out of that weird growing stage with their nails, it's only when I need. There's no problem then when they're adults and they go to the vets. I can still do it. Now, when they're bigger, depending on the size of your dog, it might be difficult to, like, pick them up, sit down and hold them there like I did when they were puppies. But all I do is like, hey, man, come here. Come lay down here. Get them just to lay down, almost in a down. I don't tell them to down, but like indicate, hey, man, I just want you to like lay down here, and then I just roll them over. But that's part of the process. As they get bigger, I kind of just get them to do that. It's not they're learning, I'm teaching it, but it's kind of just like, hey, man, we're doing this. And then they learn that that's part of the process. There's not a cue like, sir, please lay down between my legs. It's not on a cue like that. It's very contextual. But they follow my guidance. If I'm like, hey man, like it's just here, like lay down a little bit, they'll do it. So, but yeah, I do get a lot of questions about that. In fact, I've got a video up somewhere. It's one I did with Fred and Frank. It shows in there, it's about like living with the dogs and like me, what I have to do to clean their kennels, me checking their teeth, all these sort of things. You see Fred, full-grown dog, and he's like laying between my legs and I'm trimming his nails and checking his ears and everything. Yeah. So there's a video somewhere on my YouTube about that. We might put a card somewhere up. I don't know. Which side is it? This side? Yeah. YouTube master over there.
All right, you're up.
I thought you guys used the clicker for recall while socializing. Is the clicker now used as a marker for correct behavior? So
it's all those things.
It's all of them. And the reason the dogs don't get confused is because I'm very consistent with like how I use it in different contexts. I'd say, like when I bring out the pivot box thing for luring, they know that when I mark in that, it's because they did the correct thing and they're going to get the reward now that's coming. If they're running around and they're at free liberty and I just want to go, hey, I haven't been to this area before, I'm going to show them that food is a possibility here. So like they're just running around sniffing stuff and I go click, they go, wow, food's a possibility here. Yeah. Awesome. Now they don't think that what they were doing was correct, but they come back immediately. It is a little bit of a recall there, but it's like, I then tell them that they're back to free liberty, but they're not going to try to hit that spot again and think, oh, that's the thing. Like it's not shaping.
Yeah.
And then when I do shaping, it's very clear when I'm doing that. So the context, my body language, the leashes or the collars or the box that I have out, everything like that is kind of what helps them understand each of the different ways that I use it at the moment.
I think it's one of those sort of don't overthink it. All the dogs know.
The dog's going to learn it.
When I hear that noise, I'm flying back to you to take food.
Yeah.
That's it. And use that as is appropriate, right? Yeah. Like when it's convenient for you to have the dog hear a noise, come back to you and take food. If food's going to act as a reinforcer, then sweet. If food's going to act, then that's what you used it for. If that food is going to draw the dog back to you and you give it to them and you keep them there and that therefore it was a recall, then use it for that. But don't overthink it. I think sometimes people get a little bit hung up on the idea of like, oh, you marked that behavior, you told the dog it was correct, even though it was like you used it as a recall, it was out there doing something that was incorrect. But for it to be reinforcement, it has to increase the frequency and likelihood of, right? And so if you don't let them go back out there, it's not reinforcement. And what you reinforced was them coming back and they took the food. And so they know, oh, okay, I come back. And then if they go back out to the same thing and you don't allow them to, then you have not reinforced that behavior. You have reinforced the coming back because they were not able to show you the same behavior again. Therefore, it did not increase the frequency and likelihood of the behavior.
And in saying that, sometimes I specifically get the dog to do something I don't want them to do in the future, like go run and look at the people or chase the birds, because those dogs, I think it was Fred, he had a real hard time leaving me. So it was like, I actually had to go, yeah, man, you walk away, you get food.
Yeah.
And then eventually he walked away far enough and for long enough going, am I far enough yet? And, oh, what's this smell? And then he started self-reinforcing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, cool, man, you just realize there's other things around. So
that's right.
You can use it for that, but it's like that was a very particular way to do it.
All right, you're up.
Would be great to see your explanation while working the pups to put things more into context as opposed to the discussion. Did I read this one already?
No. Yeah, so like I agree, but the thing is, that's why we're kind of structuring the things the way that we have, and it's part of like my bigger online course and building as well as while explaining something to the camera is not the ideal way to be training a dog, and Jazz is really actually training the dog. So
I'm trying to film it to make this stuff.
It's a lot to do in one thing, and so typically, when we have the actual course, it will be an explanation of what's happening and then a demonstration, so that you hear it, you understand the theory component of it, and then you get to watch it happen, rather than trying to explain it just in the moment. Now, you can explain it just in the moment, but you're going to be derailing the dog. You're making a lot of noise and you're trying
Or you cut your explanation to a not actually an effective explanation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the trouble I find if I'm to try to do that. I won't derail the session. I'll derail my explanation and stop mid-sentence just to go back to it. But
yeah. So for an example, one of the courses that we're making at the moment, or I'm making at the moment, the first section on motivation, the dogs don't need to know anything. I'm just demonstrating motivation. So I can talk to the camera, I can be managing the dog, and I can be talking to the camera because the dog isn't really going off any of my signals in that moment. But then onto the second part of our communication, that's all going to be voiceover, because I am developing my communication with the dog, and that does not involve talking to the camera. So the practicalities of then trying to, you then have two students at once, which is that's a fool's errand as well, because you're training a dog and you're trying to train
and they're learning
on the
different
other end
things.
Of the camera. Yeah, and so while I appreciate your feedback, it's just not possible considering that our primary role, like this is fun to do and we're really happy doing it, and very glad there's lots of people that are enjoying it. At the end of the day, Jazz's job is to train these dogs, right? And to make sure they understand the things that she needs them to understand.
I was going to say, I'm trying, and it's not the priority training the dogs is, but I'm trying to put out occasional videos of some of the sessions, whether they're in part or in full, on my channel, which will be linked at the end or something. But if you want to see some of the sessions, there's not many, but I do then either explain voiceover or before or after the session. So if you want to see some of that, that's a little bit of a taste of it. But as you said, most of it's going to be in a course yet to come, but that's there if that's going to be helpful for you.
So may as well plug it. My course is now available. I haven't started marketing that properly yet. It's still sort of done by beta testers, but it is available for sale. It's on my website, seriousdogbusiness.com.
I forgot you released.
Well, it's not like I haven't. It's available. People can buy it, but it's with the beta testing now. But that's all done. It's all ready to buy. I just haven't started marketing it, but that explains in it like about communication and the way that you interact with, and every input that you give to the dog is really important in that moment. And so the tone of your voice, the way that you're expressing yourself to the dog needs to be for the dog in that training moment. And there's a lot that can be done just with the tone of your voice, you know, and your posture and the way that you're communicating with the dog. So you can really help bracket a dog into the correct behavior, you know, bouncing them off the gutters by saying like, hey, I don't like that. Oh no, that's really good. I do like that. Hey, don't, right? And like keeping them within that channel. And so
modeling your energy to bring the correct energy while they're learning. Totally.
And so doing that for the dog is more important than doing it for the observer who's learning to train the dog, right? It's better to see what the actual is happening with the dog, and then we can talk about it after or during as a voiceover. All right. Hey, so the next one was a comment, Jazz talking to Gav, channeling her inner Iron Man, which was in the video where we showed Jazz giving the handover to our friend Gavin, who looked after, who did he have? He had Peter for a while. Yeah. Which was, Peter was a lot for him that week.
He was
Peter was in
barking
peak
a lot.
assholery at that period in his life.
Oh, he came back in peak assholery. Like he was,
But talk about that.
He's quiet upstairs right now. Touch wood. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason I'm so particular about the way I'm going to instruct someone to take care of the pups or certain things, which by the way they volunteered for this. After this, they still had a chance to pull out. I'm not forcing someone to do it. Like, don't think I'm a complete asshole
to do this.
Just sometimes. But right, so I'm very particular, and I tell them what my daily structure is, not so that they can replicate it and stuff. It's so they can understand why the dog might suddenly start barking at 5 o'clock in the morning, because that's when they need a pee, because that's when they do with me, and why they're then barking at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. because that's when I come home from the gym on certain days or whatever, what it might be. So, but then I talk about some of the finer details about like each dog. So for him, he had Peter. And I'll go, hey, when he does this, like this is kind of what he needs and this is why. And I tell them that so they can, A, have hopefully a better time with him, but also B, if the dog changes for them, it's good for me to know that, because it might tell me if he handled the change to a new environment well or poorly. And when they then tell me everything that happened when he comes back to me, if they go, yeah, you said like, hey, he's going to put everything and anything in his mouth and you said not to let him do that, but I did let him do that and he ate this thing. Well, now I might take that into account in the following week to go, he might be trying to open the garbage bin in the kitchen because he learned that.
Yeah.
Now, they don't live in my house, right? But he lived in that house with Gav, and he learned to open the pedal bin, right? So if he was living in my house, I would want to jump on that pretty quick when he came home. I wouldn't then need to question, why is he suddenly doing this? How did this come about? And like there's a lot of benefit to being really methodical and diligent with like the sequences and things like that, like getting them out of my car. I tell them how I do that as well, because it makes it so much easier, not just for the person, but the dog can understand sometimes, and then it just helps the whole thing. But if they want to change it, they understand it'll be more difficult, but I choose to do certain sequences and certain routines with the dogs. Later, I throw a spanner in the works and be consistently inconsistent, and that's got a plan to it as well. But it's being predictable and clear with them that makes a really big difference and makes them more livable for me. And then later, as they're ready, we start to throw spanners in the works, and they're just like, whoa, didn't expect that. That's cool. I can adjust. That's a small change. Later, massive changes, and they're adaptable. So that's something as simple as like when our friends here at club might go offer to get the pups out of the car because they just want to pat the puppies, and I go, cool, you hold his collar here and your forefingers under here, and then you put the other collar on over the head like this, but with this hand. If you do it the other hand, you're not getting it on. Like it was funny. I watched the other day, I was like, hey man, do it like this. She's like, wow, it's like he knew. It is like he knew.
Like he does that a few times a day.
All right, so it makes some things smoother, but it also helps then to teach certain cues. I can hold a collar out to any of my dogs and they'll eventually put their head in there if I want them to, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you're up.
Is the dog operant while being lured? I think you're up, Mr. Like bro science over here.
I think like that's kind of a loaded question. It's why I
Yeah.
waited till now to touch on it instead of answering in the comments. I think that depends how you look at things, right? So what we know is that luring is going to be a process by which you can bring a dog into the behavior, but it might be more difficult for the dog to actually realize what it's doing. But of course, it is going to realize what it's doing. And so the difference between an operant process and a classical process, really the main thing on that is that the subject, the learner, can't start a classical process. Something else, some sort of external stimulus has to do that, and then a sequence of events unfolds after that. Whereas an operant process is where the dog goes, hey, like I choose to do this and I'm going to find out what the outcome is after that. So really, you can't actually separate the two, right? Like they're always at play. So if you're luring, you begin luring and the dog's just following the lure and it's going to get it. So like, yeah, of course, that's a somewhat classical, but the dog doesn't have to. He can check out and he can do whatever he wants at that point, and he can follow the lure in many and various ways, and in that way, he's then operant. So this is one of those things, like I don't want to get too hung up on that. Like luring has a very important role, and for a while there, I stopped luring altogether, and I'm not happy with the outcome.
Paying for it now.
Yeah, I'm not happy with the outcome, and so I did that, because it felt like something that I should do at the time, and I'm glad that I did, and I did it for a couple of dogs, including my own personal dog. But
you were like heavily experimenting. I mean, it's what we always do, experiment with things. But it's like, I remember, and you were like, I want to see how far this goes and what the consequence is.
Exactly. And now I know.
Yeah.
Right? So yes, I taught my dog everything that he needs to know, but there's a few things that I'm just not happy with how he does it, and because you're kind of, if you're not luring and you're shaping, you're at the mercy of how the dog chooses to do things. And sometimes if you want the dog to do something very unnatural for a dog, like no dog, well, I shouldn't say no dog, but it's rare the dog would ever, like, when it chooses to lie down, keep its feet dead still and sink back. Now, of course, the better you get at shaping, there's things you can do to facilitate that, like first teach having a feet on a flat board, and then there's ways to do it. But I think that I have for sure landed, I don't get so caught up in that shit. And my mantra now is that I'm going to help the dog as much as necessary, but as little as possible. And with that as my, guiding light on how I'm going to teach a dog to do anything, that has been wonderful. So I'm not attached to whether I'm free shaping, I'm luring, or doing anything. I don't care how I get there, as long as I get there. And along the process, I want to help the dog as little as possible, so the dog has to work to figure it out, but as much as necessary, because I may need it to go away that the dog's just never going to do by itself. But similarly, I don't want to leave a dog to stress and not be able to figure out what it is that's going down.
Like, and stress is okay, distress, not so much. You've got your barrier, boundary there.
And the mindset that you bring a dog into in its learning phase can very often be permanent in the way the behavior is then done after that. So if the dog is, stick with the example of a down, if the dog in figuring out how to down is really, struggling to figure it out, and has a level of
frustration, but like unhelpful frustration.
Yeah. Then when he understands how to down, and you put a classical signal in front of his already operant process of knowing how to down, you are triggering that frustration mindset, and he will do that. He will perform that behavior in that emotion. And so that's why I'm like, I'm gonna do whichever one feels right, and whichever one the dog needs. Not like, this is how I do it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, coming back to someone asked about the out, and we spoke about that, it's important to not have the conflict, because if I'm starting to fight the dog, teaching the out early, at any age, if I'm fighting the dog to get the out, then that out's potentially going to be a problem the whole way. And it's not to say you can't fix it. You can. We have. Like, there's been club dogs, there's been client dogs that you've changed the mindset and stuff, but that's taken a lot of work, changing methods, making it look completely different. But it's like, that's one of the reasons I make sure that I start with cooperation, because with the out, I'm creating dangerous dogs. Like, they're going to learn how to damage people. I don't want to be a source of their frustration. If I'm fighting them for an out after they've just taken someone down and they really want to keep this person. Like there's no fight, man. We're on the same team. So that's one of the examples of like how it's important how they think about that later. Are you doing any scent discrimination as well? Narcotics and explosives. So I'm not going to own up to having narcotics and explosives. So no.
So
no.
No, in Australia, there's not really a market for that.
It didn't occur to me where they were from, actually. Yeah.
So in Australia, there's not really much of a market for it. So as civilians, especially in the capacity that we have no ability to hold those things. And of course, you could get pseudos, but similarly, some agencies don't want dogs that are trained on pseudos. And most importantly, is that we don't know where they're going to go, right? Like whether they're going to pan out, whether they're going to need that. So in Australia,
they may want them on multiple odors or just only ever one odor. We know.
That's right. So we don't know who the end user is going to be of the dogs. So we don't put that. We teach them to search, but we don't put any odors on them. Mostly because, yes, we don't know what odors that we would even put. In order to do that, we would have to use pseudos. And part of the handler courses that the dogs will ultimately be paired with their handlers usually involves an element of that. So they've got to do it anyway.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, one of the bits of feedback we got from the unit we sold Fred and Frank to was like, oh, well, they know everything. Like our handlers didn't have anything to teach them. And I was like, well, here's some things they don't know. Teach them a spin on a cue, but yeah, so it's important that they can do what they need to do on their course and develop whatever they need to develop with the handler. But what Pat said is like we develop the searching and the hunt drive. So the play games and the tracking and the man trailing and stuff, and the play games with the searching, like the area search sort of stylish stuff, sort of. That's kind of just opening up that pathway to all that stuff and developing the hunt drive. So then when they do, if and when they do choose to do that, it's there straight away. Foundations are set. They can go straight into the work, kind of like what with Roger and Richard, who have now got a find recently. I didn't teach them any of that, but they've gone and done specific scent detection and now
that's who they went to needs that.
Yeah. So it's just setting the foundations, I find, is more important, part we do.
All right. How do you contact a breeder about raising puppies to sell to canine programs?
Hi, we'd like some puppies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you don't really, there's nothing specific. You're just searching for a puppy, you describe the attributes, and you get the one that you want. There's nothing to it.
All the puppies we've got are always been like, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. A breeder contacted us and wanted to sort of check.
I think one thing I'll say on this, though, is when we started doing this, it was because it was COVID and...
No, it's because Pat goes, you know what you should do? Get a couple of puppies. We should train them.
Yeah.
You keep them.
Exactly. And so...
Sure.
and we've been lucky that it's panned out in the past. But this is not a good job. This is a terrible job because the pay rate...
Don't even talk to me about the pay.
The pay rate is pathetic. The amount of time that you put into these dogs, no matter how much you sell them for, is not actually going to cover your time. Your pay rate's going to be in the cents per hour, if that.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. And the risk of it not working out and you not even be able to sell them is astronomical.
Yeah, because we're not in contract with anyone.
No, there's no one that's
the risk is all on us.
These. Yeah, and they might turn out to not be suitable. They might, you don't know what's going to happen to these guys even post-teething. We don't know. And so you just do your best. But I definitely would not... for anybody that's interested in doing this, only do it if you for sure want the enjoyment of doing it. That's why we do it.
If you would do it even if there was no money, then it would probably pay. Maybe,
exactly.
Possibly make it worthwhile.
Because there potentially is no money.
Yeah.
And so... the reason that we do it is because I've got adult dogs of my own. I like raising, training. I like being a part of the training start to finish of dogs, but I'm not in a position to take on another one. Jazz similarly is like developing her skill set in doing that. And so you need dogs to do it with.
And then if and when I decide that I really, really like one of these and connected with it, then I can choose and maybe that will become a forever dog, you know, and then I could do higher end stuff in different avenues and stuff with one dog and develop others on the side. But for now, it's like, they're all going to get sold.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
And the other thing to really strongly consider is that dogs don't actually have a value. They're worth what someone's going to pay for them.
Yeah.
And so
supply and demand.
If it comes around to the time where we go, oh, these dogs are ready to sell, and we might contact a couple of police units and be like, hey, we got these dogs. They might say, hey, we're not looking. We're not interested. Or we've been watching your videos and we don't like them. You know what I mean? Like there's a million things. So if you're counting on selling the dog, like that's a fool's errand.
If it's your full-time like income, it's not a stable and like reliable income.
Yeah, like I had a dog once many years ago that I was raising to plan to sell, and she just didn't work out. She had health issues, and the drive never came in because of those health issues, and I ended up just giving her away. And so, 12 months ago,
and then found out even more about the health
she had
issues.
Even worse
like,
health issues, and she had to be
explained everything.
And so, if I were counting on any income from that dog, I didn't get any income. That dog cost me a fortune, actually, because she had to have a bunch of surgeries and stuff like that. So fortunately, I had a vet that did most of that for free. But this is not something you should consider as like, I'm going to do that for a job. Do it for if you can make it a cost neutral hobby, you are killing it. If you can be in the position that this is something you get to do and it doesn't cost you money, you are killing it. You are in the best position possible. Don't think that this is a thing that's going to make money, because it doesn't make any money for us.
Like, even when you think about, like we were just talking earlier, my God, they're going through a lot of food at the moment. And then it's like there's vet bills on top of that.
Yeah.
Like vaccinations, worming, tick flea, all of that. And then like whatever equipment, because like the wear and tear on equipment then as well. And oh man, there's so much. And now I wish I wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah. But for sure doing stuff like this is like, if you're into dogs and if you want to just develop a skill set, like this is how you practice. And there's questions about like, how do you get into this? You just do it yourself. There's nothing to get into. You don't have to ask anyone for permission. I was a part of doing this kind of thing with someone else years ago, like on the peripheries of what they were doing. And then when COVID happened and we couldn't travel, we couldn't really do anything, I was like, hey, do you want to do this?
Yeah, someone just shoved their foot up my butt and go, here's a couple of puppies.
Yeah.
Have no idea how they'll work out. Good luck, mate.
But exactly, but it ends up in really increasing your skill set as a trainer, and you get to like work through.
Thank you,
solve,
Pat.
all that kind of stuff. Exactly. All right.
No, it's good.
Moving on. Your turn.
What are the stuff you teach as? I hate reading questions if there's no grammar and like
the problem is people
punctuation,
just like
grammar,
and then we copy and paste it straight in.
So like I'm reading this, and when there's an error, I'm not making an error in what I'm saying. I'm trying to decipher what was meant to be typed.
Improving the question.
Sure, whatever that word is.
Yeah.
What are the things you teach as part of lifestyle skills? I don't. There's so many I don't even know where to start. But like things like being in the kennels, and living in the yard, and not barking, not fence fighting with any of the other dogs. Like they're sort of the livable things. I also teach them some thresholds that like they can't go through my side gate unless I say that they can go through. They can't go in because they don't live in my house. They don't walk through my back door even if it's open unless I give them the cue to come in. They don't go inside my laundry because the laundry is external to the house. And that's because there's poisons. And with the back door, that's because I want my dog to be able to walk in and out, but not have those ferals walking in and out. So they're not things you have to teach, but that's going to make my life easier living with all my dogs in my situation at my house. I teach them lifestyle cues in terms of like, come here, bro, is my very just casual recall, but it's also pretty damn reliable. I didn't actually have a formal recall unless I was to call them into a position with all the previous dogs, but they would be off leash and trustworthy, and I could say, come here, bro, and they come on back.
But that's true. Like even my own dog, that's the same.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a recall on my dog. I'm like, hey, come here, and he may or may not. But if I want him to come here, I tell him to heel.
Well, it always kind of amazed me though, because it was like they actually did it. And I was like, I don't know how to reteach this because it's
it's just lifestyle.
Yeah. But then, like, you know, things like I say this way, and that means you don't have to come back to me, but you need to change direction because, like, maybe there was a fork in the dirt road, and like I'm thinking of the bush tracks I've been on recently, and Peter was like, "It's this one, right?" And I go this way, and he's like, "Nope, must be that one. No worries." And he doesn't come to me; he just changes direction and goes where we're now walking. You know. Those sort of things mean I don't have to give them the formal obedience commands, especially right now. They don't have obedience commands, but I can control them at a distance, not reliably off leash yet. They're not at that point, but well enough that I trust them off leash given certain circumstances, and it just makes it so much more livable. And then by the time I have obedience, I only use that when I'm prepared to make sure that it happens in the correct way and all the boxes are ticked for that behavior. Like if I call them back to heel, like if they're not looking at me, I need to deal with it. But if I'm distracted by something else, then I'm not dealing with it. So that's where I'm like, come here, bro. And I might just do a collar hold. So I teach them, hey, when I hold your collar or I pop you between my legs and just sort of hold you there, don't freak out. Don't light up. We're not like, it's just a thing that happens. Those sort of things. Like there's so many, I can't list them all, but it's really just what works for you. Like decide what you kind of need from your dog, and don't think about like what you see other people do. Think about what's going to make your life easy with the dog and just figure out a way to train it. Yeah. It wasn't until halfway through Fred and Frank that I realized that Come Here Bro was a recall. And I was like, okay.
All right, the next one. Can the Pat and Jazz Show become a regular podcast? No. I've got enough fucking content going on.
Besides, this is regular. This is every week. Like,
but it's worth bringing up. I don't know how long we'll continue doing the weekly things. Like, certainly probably not until they're gone. I would imagine until they're like 10 months oldish, when they're not puppies anymore. This is what we wanted to show. And we'll have the actual course that people will be able to follow. The whole point of doing this was, you know, within our own client circles and within, you know, the wider community of people who are aware of the things that we do, there's lots of questions about this stuff. And my honest to God motivation, and I talk about this all the time, is that there's so many people, you're probably one of them watching, statistically, chances are you are one of them, that is probably a really good dog trainer, is probably like very capable of having a sport dog, but you're too scared to get one. And so I wanted to, this is why I was so keen on doing this, is to show like, hey, it's not that hard. Like this is, and here's some of like the process to doing it, because it's been my experience that some of the like pet dog trainers that learn from me and I deal with and you know, in the wider community, they want to get into doing something like PSA or whatever, insert high-powered dog sport here, but because they're aware of how difficult that can be, they don't do it because they're aware of like, oh my God, you got to have everything in place. And then I get people ring me and they go, hey man, I watched John Wick and I've bought a Malinois and I want to do something cool with it. And they turn out to be great. And so like if you're committed, you'll figure this stuff out. And that's what we wanted to just show a bit of a pathway to doing that. There've been some comments on the stuff that we've put out, and feedback has been that the level that we're approaching this at is correct, because this is not for brand new people and this is not for experts, you know, this is for the like enthusiastic pet dog owner or the sort of early years trainer that is getting into, you know, really understanding dog training and potentially is going to do something like this or get a dog of like this of their own. This is who we're making this for. And once they hit sort of 10 months or thereabouts, you're into just normal dog training after that, right? Like, and there's plenty of courses, there's plenty of other content about the specifics of how to teach things. That's not what we're doing here. We're just showing the process of raising a dog from a puppy to a dog. And at about the 10-month-old mark that they are that. So we'll probably go to about then. But also, as we found out last week, it's not easy to always get this done. And both of us have a pretty hectic travel schedule for the year coming up. So there will be less frequent videos. We've been trying to really hit them out every week and have been doing an okay job of that to this point. But the videos will become less frequent. They won't necessarily be every week. We might even drift back to once a month, but we'll figure that out as we go.
And like one of the big things is to like when they're young puppies, to show like, hey, yeah, they slept for like 90% of the day. Like that, it's a puppy, not to overtrain them and stuff, which is why every time someone asks me about the schedule, like I'll talk about it as much as I can, because it's like, they're not working for 10 hours a day. They're not working for 6 hours a day. They're out for short periods. There's a lot of learning in terms of how to live a life, but it's I think that was probably one of the biggest like important things about like the puppy content, to go like, there wasn't much happening this week. Like,
Yeah.
here's just what they did. It's similar to last week with
Yeah.
a tiny change, or, you know.
What I think has been like interesting for me to understand is, I think more and more people around the world are becoming somewhat neurodivergent. I think that, the social media is probably giving people ADD at a pretty high rate. This is my bro science version of it, but what I've
and
noticed,
not the typical ADHD that you're born with, like it's developing
an inability to pay attention,
yes,
but what
something
I think,
that simulates it,
and I think that what I've noticed for sure, and I made some content about it just the other day for some people, like just privately, is that a lot of people who are coming into the dog training space now want a process. They want like, give me step 1, step 2. And so this is the best that we can do in terms of that, because I think, for the most part, you get like people who are really good with dogs and are naturally good at it. They're just like, oh, I do it when you feel like it. And like my question before is like, when your ancestors tell you to, you'll feel it deep within your bones and then you'll do it. And that's not helpful. That's not helpful to people who are just starting out. So what we're trying to do with this kind of thing is be helpful to people who are just starting out, but aren't like brand new starting out with a pet dog, are starting out to like, no, I want a serious dog that can do cool things, right? And that's who we're trying to serve. And it's been great to get feedback that
we're hitting it. That market.
We are serving those people.
Which sort of ties into another question. I don't know if it was actually the next one, but I saw it. Do you ever get people asking to train high drive dogs to only be pet dogs? Example, snuffing out the drive. I don't quite know what they mean by snuffing, like suppressing?
Yeah, suppressing.
Yeah, so like, yes, we get people like that, so.
Yeah.
But
you get them. I mean, I don't tend to deal in that much. And what I like, when I have someone that's like, hey, I've got this Malinois and it's been crazy in the house, I'm like, yeah, no shit, it's Malinois.
Yeah.
And rather than...
It's more about education and like, go, hey,
these are the things you got to do. And, for the most part, when you get a high drive dog and it is causing problems in your life, it's because it's having a problem in its own life, right? And so I'm not a person... I think I'm known enough for not doing this. I don't get inquiries about this stuff anymore at all. But I'm not interested in cutting all the drive out of your dog. I'd much rather show you how to point that drive at something and let the dog express it so that it's tired and hangs out in your house.
I feel like you probably get the questions, you just don't get the notifications because it's
no doubt. Yeah. But I think like this is one of the funny things. Like I like to use Caesar Milan as an example, right? Because not that like I am putting Caesar as like the pinnacle of dog training.
Because most people know him.
No, but what people say of Caesar, like a lot of his criticism that comes is that all he does is make dogs tired. Because what he really does, when like on the show, I haven't watched the show in a long, long time, but the early day shows that I did watch some of, was that he had mostly dealing in unfulfilled dogs, and what he did was fulfill them. So he's not like training them to do cool shit. He's not teaching them to heal and do crazy stuff, but he's going into people's lives and going like, hey, you have the wrong dog. You are not appropriately letting this dog express itself. These are the things you need to do. And now the problem that you had, we don't even need to address your problem. And that is like, that's mostly what dog training is in my experience, is that like people, you go into their home and they're like, dog's tearing up the carpet or, ripping up pillows. And it's like, yeah, well, like we got to play tug with that dog. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. And so I think that
I'm guessing someone like him, like I know nothing about him, but I'm guessing someone like him is just maybe naturally or practice, but clear in communication, like going, good, no, don't do that. That is not good. Nah.
Exactly.
Like just having the 100% black and white clarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Exactly. And so like, while Caesar's not someone that you're going to see on a competition field or anything like that, he's not interested in that shit. He like wants that like live in harmony with the dog. But that is a big component of it. That's why I get the shits when a lot of like real dog trainers are very dismissive of Caesar in his show. First of all, I dare you to have a fucking camera follow you around everywhere you go, right? And see how that pans out for you. And have the editing of that put into somebody else's hands that has to dramatize that in a way that people are worth watching. Like you're an enthusiast. If you've made it to this point, God knows how long we've been going.
Wait, you know what we should do? Say something really bad that's then going to be argued and then we'll get more views.
Yeah, exactly, right? But like, and
like
to be on a network television, there's got to be drama. When there's a commercial break, there has to be a reason for people to come back after the commercial break, Like there needs to be like a point of interest, which is, stylized and all that. So anyway, I'm not defending Caesar.
All I'm thinking of is like the only reason I come back to the TV real fast, like as a kid, was to race my siblings. Go, I'm back first. I got it.
But so I'm not going to continue to defend Caesar, but I think a big part of what he does is just fulfilling the dog. And that's a big part of still what we do as well, is just making sure, like when people say, I've got this high drive dog and I want you to, crush it, which is never what they say, but that's what they're inferring. You're like, hey, but we don't actually need to do that because that's not going to work really. That's going to
come out somewhere else.
Yeah, and you're not going to have this dog. You're going to have a shadow of this dog.
Yeah.
What I can do is teach you how to get this out, and in a task appropriate way. Everybody uses the same example of the old lady with the pit bull that she got from the rescue. You find a way for her to, from her chair, be able to let the dog express drive. Spring pole is always the answer. So anyway, the answer is you encounter those people, but I don't do that. That's just not something that I'm interested in doing, is just crushing people, the drive out of people's dogs. That's not something I'm interested in doing.
Real short question. Why the pink pouch on that last session where we were both out with the dogs, huh?
Yeah, well...
So, I was like, you know the answer.
Yeah, they're colour-coded.
Yeah.
They're colour-coded.
They don't have red pouches, okay?
Yeah,
so pink was the closest, so it's pink and blue.
Yeah. And so this is something that I've used to do, like I would still do if I'm raising a puppy, and Jazz definitely does, is that their food goes into that pouch and that's their allocation for the day. So then you can work within that. And so there's a blue pouch.
It's empty.
Yeah, that's it. This is my budget of training for the day. So there's a blue pouch, there's a pink pouch because they don't make red ones. And so you know which dog's at it. And I had the red dog, so I had the pink pouch. End of story.
Look, maybe they've made red ones. I don't know. It's been a while. Those pouches lasted though, because I got them with Fred and Frank, I believe. Yeah.
Should look at the Voila ones next. I really like them.
I don't know if I want the magnet thing, or not the magnet, the snap close.
Yeah, I like them. I think they're good.
I know you do. You never shut up about them.
Well, it's rare that someone
when you find the
invents
product,
something new in dog training, right? That's actually better.
It's almost like you always talking about your Crocs. So next question. For the puppies laying on their back in your legs, is this something you keep up as they get bigger? And if so, how do you teach them to get into position once they're too large to lift? I think I covered that earlier. I didn't realize there was a repeat question. But yeah, it's super important. Actually, I won't name them, but the person whose dog is dying overseas, remember how I told you? Yeah. She told me the other day, oh man, it's going to give me goosebumps. She told me that, so the dog has cancer, but I won't say much more. Anyway, so they're getting chemo, and they said, look, we're going to have to sedate the dog. This is what we do, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, so how come you said you don't have to, but you do have to? Why? She's like, the dog cannot move for the whole time it's getting the chemo, or, what's getting injected or whatever could slip, and then it goes between the skin and stuff, and it's a whole thing and whatever. Anyway, so she's like, no problem. This dog will just lay there, and it's not in a down. She was like, hey man, we're just chilling. The dog switched off and was like, no problem. I just lay here. Yeah. And she did it, and she was just like, they were amazed. They sent her, the dog ended up needing to stay overnight for something else. And she told the people how to do it, and hey, this is what you do if you just like I said, sequences and stuff. The dog will, told you I get goosebumps. The dog will understand things and stuff. And then the people in the vet were like, okay, buddy, here it is. And this is a Mally who's doing PSA, knows how to screw some people up, and sent her videos later of them doing it with the dog, and the dog's like, no problem. I'll just lay here now. This is what we're doing. But he'll switch on when he's on. But it's well,
that's when all your training pays its dividends. That's where
I always use.
That's why I've been doing this shit.
Right. I always use the example on the worst day your dog's life. Let's say it breaks its leg and has to go to the vet, and then it gets crated. No. Now the example is going to be what happens when your dog gets cancer and you suddenly have to give it chemo, and then you need it to lay still or it could die because it gets injected in the wrong spot. That's my new example.
So hyper specific.
But I was very proud of him for that.
Right. Here's the last one. Always enjoy watching you train. I wonder if you could chat a little more about pushy versus pet dog. Certainly there may be times when you may want a pet dog to be pushy. For example, if you're training them for different sports, is that where windows come in? And since they are not quite to windows yet, do you ever work on being polite versus pushy right now, or does that kind of thing come later? An example might be that when we are playing or training, I want the dog to be pushy and I want him to want to engage with me, but if I'm sitting down and it's time to relax, I don't want him to be constantly looking to engage with me in a pushy way. And what does pushy mean? Can a dog...
I feel like that question should have been at the start.
Yeah. Can a dog be pushy and also keep all four on the floor? I hope this makes sense. I know these will be working dogs, but even working dogs must have some manners sometimes, or no. Thanks, guys.
So I'm going backwards here. Can a dog be pushy with four on the floor? Sure. Pushiness is kind of like you can define it how you want. You can have your own rules and boundaries. But me, it's not about they have to be like physically.
It's not necessarily physically pushing you.
Yeah, like persistent and bringing desire and intensity to whatever it is that we're doing, and going like, I want to do this. Like, let's do this more. Let's do this better. Let's do this faster, or whatever it may be. But like a higher extent of what you're doing. They want to show that they're showing that they want to do more or better or whatever. I think this came about, I think I know who wrote the question. It was on one of my videos. And it probably came about from them jumping up and taking the treats and stuff. So like once I say the session's finished, then I don't really allow that pushiness. I don't punish it away because I want it at other times, but I don't let them succeed at that. So while they're learning the windows, because yes, windows will prevent the pushiness coming in at the wrong times, but while they're learning the windows, what I do is just not let them succeed, but I make sure I give the cue. So it's an example, like say with pulling on the collar, I want them to pull into the collar unless I say nay. I want them to pull into the harness unless I say nay. And me saying nay is like indicating that, hey, that's not going to be successful right now, like try something else. So with the pushing, like if they're trying to steal that food from me and I go, all right, cool, we did the session, like finished, and I give them that cue, that verbal cue. There's also a tactile cue that I give them then as well, and I help them down. If they jump back up, I'm like, hey bud, nay, we're not doing that now. Like I've said the word and I'm calm about it because I want them to be calm, because I've just put them in a finish window, right? So that's for me under 40% level of arousal, you know. So that means I want to model to them the arousal level that I want them to have because they're learning. So I very calmly just go, hey man, that's not going to work. I'm not going to fight them and push because that looks like what we do. And they have to push back and they go, no, I gotta fight for the food. Like I gotta show you I want it more and things like that. So I'm real calm about that. If I say, hey, we're finished here, but I say I put them into the free liberty window, I might even like kind of walk towards a group of birds and go, look, there's some birds over there, and kind of help them do something else. But if they're going to be in a position where like they're just not going to stop trying to get the food, then that's where I go, cool. Wow. Someone's
He just flopped in his kettle.
Like, it sounded like you did a backflip in there.
Oh god.
They are ready for a pee. I'll finish in a sec, I guess. But it's helping. It's about helping them be successful in the window that you want them to be in, that you've just directed them to be in, and to not be successful at anything else. But if it's going to be far too difficult for them, then manage it. Take that food pouch off, and that's then going to help them. When you say finish, you get rid of the food pouch. When you say finish, you get rid of the food pouch. When you say finish, today you're still wearing the food pouch, and then you might wait a few minutes and then get rid of it. And they go, oh, and then you might leave it on. They might go, well, can I get it? Oh, no. Well, I guess every time you said this, you put it away, you still have it on, but I feel relaxed because I'm starting to learn it. So it's very much about windows, yes, but you have to teach them with the windows by sort of modeling the arousal levels and not letting them be successful with the wrong thing at the wrong time. So I don't know if that's very clear, hopefully. But yeah, pushy is what you define it to be, but we just want it to be persistent more than anything, I think.
All right, that's it.
Yeah,
you did it. You made it to the end. Holy fuck. Puppies are starting to wake up.
Yep.
It's time to do some work with them.
Again.
As always, if you like this stuff, if you made it to this point, if you're still here at the end, you please at this point need to like the video and comment and do all the bullshit that helps YouTube know that this is content that other people should see. If you
share it with someone, put it on social media, tell people that you're watching it.
Yeah,
some people just don't know it's there. Someone got real sad that they missed the first 10 episodes or something. I was like, hey man,
still there.
You can go back and watch, but thank you for the support.
Yeah.
But Some people
Still
just
there.
don't realize.
So if you have any further questions or anything like that, hit us up, put it in the comments. We'll do this again probably in another 6 weeks or something like that, or maybe it'll be 5 weeks because
Like,
we
don't hold us to it. We'll make it work
we'll
at
make
some
it work when we
point.
can. Check out other videos in the series over at Jazz right now. My profile and Jazz's profile over me. And I think that's it. Oh, yeah, my course. Go buy my course. All right, bye.